Yeah, Beth is
It's just a moment, and I'm glad that it's such a popular session, and there are other chairs coming. So.
Yeah, I'll make it all.
It's like having the Rolling Stones at the Canal Club.
Angela Valentine.
Yes.
Mark Crippen.
Ready, Matt?
Enforcement Core Services.
Ready? Okay.
I had spoken with you, I think, about like this
Listen,
polygraph.
for this
Site.
afternoon, I know it's around kind of leadership and those issues. I've got two presentations. One, I'm going to talk about what I call barriers to change, what often gets in the way of organizations and agencies trying to implement evidence-based practice. I know here in Virginia, I've been coming here for many years. I know that it's a state that's been pushing and trying to do these things for a long time. And I will say this right up: you never, it's always going to be the case. I mean, we're never going to. Programs can always be improved. We have a lot of things that get in the way, and I'm going to talk about some of them. And then I have a short presentation that I want to show you about ethics and what what's getting in the way of that as well. Kind of what we're seeing and what officers are good at, what they're not as good at, and we can and then talk. All right. So I'll go through all this, and if you have questions on the way, we can talk about it. But it's the afternoon. I know it's after lunch, so if you want to nap, you can do that as well. I've kind of broken it down by different levels of staff, starting with administrators. And let me say right off, we rarely see an agency or a county or even a program really move forward without strong leadership. When we go in and look at a program, we're looking at the leadership. Right? We have some attributes we look for. Are they qualified? Are they experienced? Are they involved in training staff? Are they involved in supervising at some level? Right? Maybe not the chief, the higher end folks, but those program managers, folks at that level, really need to be on the shop floor. These are some of the things that we see. We see folks that give it lip service, but really don't want to change. That's they're getting pressure. They're getting pressure from the court, or they're getting pressure from some other source. But they really, they're counting the days to retire, so they're not interested. There's no identified overseer of change, or there's unstable leadership. Right? So, every 6 months there's somebody new coming in, or it's kind of ill-defined. For example, when we go in and work with a jurisdiction or a county that wants to redesign, the first thing we identify is help them build an implementation team. Who are we going to work? Whose jobs are going to be to manage this change? Common one. You pick what you like, and you ignore the rest. Right? For many years, we would go out and do training. So no matter what it was, cognitive skills, for example. We'd go out and do training and train people how to do it. You spend a week with people. You train, right? Everybody bonds. Right? I mean, you're singing Kumbaya at the end, right? So everybody likes it, right? And they love the training. You get these great evaluations, best training I ever had, blah, blah, blah. And then you go back 6 months later and you look at what they're doing. It doesn't look like anything you trained. Okay? Well, what happens? They go back, pick what they like, and that's what they do. The other stuff's too hard or it doesn't fit, And so I've learned over the years, for example, now when we do certain trainings, we coach. So you'll see that with ethics when I talk about how we train people. We coach them to make sure they've got the skills. Right? So it's not, and that's why is that important to you? Because you bring people to train you all the time. You get training, you send people to conferences, right? Same thing happens. They come back, they hear me talk, and they say, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to do this, right? But I'm not going to do this, and this. Well, then you're probably not going to get the effects that you want. Reluctant to challenge staff. Of course, that's always a big one. Oftentimes, administrators are too busy to get involved in the treatment. All right? So that's not their area. They allow someone else to do that. But as I said, good leadership means you know what's going on in your agency and how it's being done and how well. You don't understand, they don't understand the model or have the skills. And we see this quite often. Failure to develop detailed program descriptions, program manuals, things like that. Maybe you get a brochure. All right, I know, some of you may be service providers, some of you use agencies, you send kids to programs or whatever. I ask the question, let's see your program manual. Let me see, and I don't, not these glossy brochures they put together, right? Not, some curriculum they use, but a program description. When we started, a few years ago, we started designing programs. The first thing I said to my staff was, I want you, to develop with them a detailed program description. What does that include? It talks about the model the program uses. It talks about what targets it's going to focus on. It talks about how quality is going to be ensured, what the schedule is going to be like, how staff will be evaluated, how change will be measured in the kids. So we literally develop with the staff this detailed program description. Does it never change? No, of course it changed. But here's why those things are important. Okay? You got staff turnover. You move people around, they transfer, they go different places in big agencies. Sure they do, right? And so let me tell you what happens when you hire new people. They're delivering the last program they worked in. And if you don't develop a program description about your programs, they probably aren't delivering. And so it's not only useful as this roadmap, but that's what you train staff on. That's what, and everything's in there, the forms, everything you use. So I really stress that, developing detailed program. Mid-level supervisors, and in some ways they're the linchpin of organizational change. If the supervisors don't get it and buy it, it's real hard to sell it. Sometimes they feel threatened. They don't want the staff knowing more than they do. And so, for example, in ethics, the supervisors go through the training, and the supervisors, we do extra work with the supervisors, and we want them to be the coaches. Because we're going to leave someday, all right? And so we want them, because if the supervisors buy in and have the skills, right, that's who the staff go to, right? They don't go to the high administrator, they go to those supervisors. So supervisors, sometimes they don't have the skills, you got to make sure they do. Oftentimes it breaks down because they are not supervising. They're not making sure the staff are following the program description. Sometimes they're not part of the decision making, and so that's a barrier. If they don't have any say-so, sometimes they won't challenge staff, and sometimes, of course, they get this us against them mentality. So they form an alliance with the staff against the administration, and you have a lot of problems. I mean, that's just not a healthy organization to begin with, and you have to deal with some of those things. The staff, there's always natural resistance to change. And in defense of it, you have people you hire to do one job, now you tell them you want them to do another job. All right? So they were hired, and maybe you had a model. I was just up in Michigan in some county in some juvenile court. They asked me to come up and look at it, and they were quite honest about it. They said, look, we had a punitive model. Everything we did was punitive, and now we've gone to a treatment model. Now we've gone to a service model, and not everybody's coming along with us. Okay? And in defense of those folks, they were hired. This is what the job was, and now you're saying no. You got to reinforce kids. You got to teach them skills. You got, and they're saying, hey, what I signed up for. So, you got to get through that. You got some true believers in the existing model, sometimes because it worked for them. I'll bet you have some agencies.